I am totally exhausted this week, and there are a couple of reasons why. First, I finally went into the clinic on Wednesday night, and the doctor says I have mono. So I invite all your various jokes on that topic down in the comments section below. But as much as it sucks, mono is only the second most exhausting thing I've endured this week, right behind this debate, if you can call it that, about what's going on at the border. And I really shouldn't be surprised that our public debates are no longer fact or reason based. They're just shouting matches, they're artisan emotional displays, they're scraping at the very bottom of the Trump is Hitler barrel. Facts, reason, practical solutions, these things are all casualties in the show that's just about shrieking and being the most boisterously angry at the right on-camera opportunity. None of the show is worse, though, in either poor taste or in real damage than the treatment of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen this week. It's what I want to highlight, but before I do, let's recall why we're even in this controversy in the first place. Protesters and a large portion of the American people are mad because large numbers of children, some 2,300 since May, have been separated from their parents at the US-Mexico border as a result of those parents being prosecuted for committing the crime of crossing the border illegally. I see a lot of news coverage that implies or outright states this practice of separating kids from parents in this context is uniquely Trumpian, but that's not exactly true. What is uniquely Trumpian is the policy of prosecuting all those who are caught crossing the border illegally, no exceptions. That would be the so-called zero tolerance policy announced by Attorney General Jeff Sessions in April. Now, if you're placing parents in custody and prosecuting them, you can't place the children in that same custody. This according to a federal court ruling from 1997. That ruling says immigration officials must place children in the least restrictive setting appropriate. And a sister case in 2016 affirmed this standard applies to both accompanied and unaccompanied children alike. The parents are being arrested and prosecuted for committing crimes. The kids can't go to jail with their parents, and so the kids need alternative shelter. That is not unique Trump policy. That is Trump enforcing federal law within the requirements federal courts have established. Still, the political pressure got to the president, who issued an executive order on Wednesday pledging to keep families together to the extent permitted by law. But that's the problem, though. The law says you can't keep these parents and children together during the process of criminal detention and prosecution. So it's either that nothing changes and these are just nice words, or Trump stops enforcing immigration law altogether, but I really don't see the latter happening. Anyway, that's where the controversy currently sits, and I can't pretend that reasonable minds can't have differing perspectives on how best to address this issue. You have parents who are breaking the law, and in the process, taking their kids with them to a foreign land. How do you address that issue in a way that protects our borders without being inhumane? But at least if ever there were a place to solve the tough issues, it's this country. So we'll debate it within the chambers of Congress, we'll do it on TV, we'll do it with keyboards, we'll do it at the water cooler, we'll do it with pens and paper and signs out on the street. We'll all have our say, and then we'll go home at night and we'll get back at it again tomorrow. Or at least that used to be the formula. That used to be the social agreement. You have your say, I'll have mine, and we'll go about our business. But now everything is politics. Now, if you're on the wrong political team, you aren't just a political target. You're a personal target. Your family, your personal outings, your home itself. And that's the story for Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen this week. On Monday, she was part of the White House's daily press briefing because as DHS secretary, her department and Health and Human Services received those children we discussed who are separated from their parents as part of the prosecution process. It's her shared responsibility to oversee the care of those kids. She gave the explanation of the facts and said, as members of the executive branch, it is our intent to enforce the law as Congress has written it and as the courts have interpreted and applied it.
Until these loopholes are closed by Congress, it is not possible as a matter of law to detain and remove whole family units who arrive illegally in the United States. Congress and the courts created this problem, and Congress alone can fix it. Until then, we will enforce every law we have on the books to defend the sovereignty and security of the United States.
Outrageous. How dare she? For this, she is to be punished by the outrage mob, and they got to her in short order. On Tuesday night, Nielsen was out to dinner at a Mexican restaurant near the White House when a gang of Democratic Socialists from the D.C. chapter broke in to shame her Cersei style.
Shame! Shame! seeking asylum in the United States?
Now, beyond being insufferably rude, these protesters have zero relationship with the facts. People coming to the US seeking asylum are not being separated from their children. People coming to a port of entry at a US border seeking asylum are not committing a crime. Therefore, they aren't arrested. Therefore, they aren't prosecuted. It's the people who are crossing the border illegally. It's the people who are committing a crime who get separated from their children because we don't put kids in jail. And as far as her eating Mexican food, how is that hypocritical? She's not anti-Mexican, neither is anybody else in the administration. She's all for Mexican immigration or immigration from any country, provided it's done within the confines of the law. If you ask me, what's really offensive here is implying that Mexican and illegal immigrant are actually the same thing, which is what these protesters are doing.
No border, no wall, sanctuary for all. And abolish ICE!
Well, there we go. I knew they were using arguments that were too sophisticated for their needs. Abolish immigration and customs enforcement. Abolish border security. Abolish immigration law altogether. We knew that was their aim anyhow. And this display continues for over 10 minutes until the secretary yields and decides to leave the restaurant. And as terrible and intrusive as that was, the spectacle wasn't finished. A mob showed up outside Nielsen's home on Friday morning, blasting sounds of children crying. And reenacting more Game of Thrones scenes.
Shame! Shame! Shame!
And yelling at her again as she entered her vehicle to go to work.
History will remember you! History will judge you! You belong in The Hague! You belong in The Hague! You're a modern-day Nazi! You belong in The Hague!
Yeah, you're a modern-day Nazi, which is why all the minorities are coming en masse to get into your country for some reason. Now, my point in illustrating this case is not necessarily who's right and who's wrong on the facts. I think the two sides show their understandings well enough for us to get that. My point is that these tactics are massively damaging to American culture, specifically our ability to get along with one another despite political differences. Keeping the political, and the personal is crucial not only to maintain the individual's well-being, to make sure that you get a break and time just to relax and turn your mind off, but it's also crucial to maintaining national peace and integrity as well. Take my most despised political foe, let's say one of these DC socialists, for example. I think their ideas suck. I would fight every one of their ideas, both with this channel and at the ballot box, tooth and nail, because I think their ideas would be severely damaging to this country, much the same way they probably think immigration policy is severely damaging. But never, not ever, would I find one of these people in a restaurant and interrupt them. Never would I go to one of their houses, not just because I afford these socialists the decency of a peaceful private life, but because I respect everyone else in that situation too. Think of all the intrusion beyond Secretary Nielsen herself. How many other dinners were ruined at that restaurant on Tuesday night that have nothing to do with immigration policy? Why should Secretary Nielsen's family be punished with morning intrusion? And beyond them, why should all the neighbors have their mornings interrupted as well? The end result of this behavior is the erosion of that crucial ability to look at your political opposition and say, yeah, Bob's got some kooky ideas, but you know what? He's a good guy, and I like him, and he's a friend. Instead, what happens is I start to hate Bob and everybody else who thinks like him. If you want to destroy culture, open borders is one way. Another way is to erase the distinction between the political and the personal. Doing so eliminates the possibility that two people can have differing views for how best to solve a problem and still be good and decent people. If you eliminate that possibility, you are going to have some very serious problems. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter, that is at ML Christensen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.